The rain hammered against the windows of our little cottage in the Cotswolds, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. For 20 years, Isolde and I had built a life here, a quiet, comfortable existence punctuated by Sunday roast dinners and the gentle rhythm of village life. Ansel, a carpenter by trade, always found solace in the simple act of shaping wood, creating something beautiful and enduring from raw materials. Isolde, a librarian, lived among stories, surrounded by the wisdom and folly of ages. Or so I thought. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. Isolde, usually so open and communicative, began to withdraw. Her laughter, once a constant melody in our home, became infrequent, replaced by a pensive silence. She spent hours on her phone, whispering into it when she thought I wasn't listening, her face flushed with a girlish blush I hadn't seen in years. When I asked her about it, she brushed it off, blaming work stress or saying she was catching up with old friends. I wanted to believe her. I desperately wanted to cling to the image of the woman I had loved for half my life, the woman who had promised to be with me till death do us part. But the nagging feeling in my gut wouldn't subside. It was like a splinter, small but persistently irritating, reminding me that something was amiss. One evening, Isolde told me she had to attend a late-night book club meeting in a neighboring village. I offered to drive her, but she insisted on going alone, saying she wanted some time to herself to prepare. I watched her drive away, the taillights of her car disappearing into the darkness, and a wave of unease washed over me. I tried to distract myself, losing myself in my workshop, the familiar scent of sawdust and wood glue usually a comforting balm. But tonight, it offered no solace. My hands trembled as I worked, my mind racing with unanswered questions. Eventually, I gave up, the unfinished chair mocking my inability to focus. Driven by an impulse I couldn't explain, I decided to check her alibi. I knew the village she mentioned and the small community hall where book club meetings were usually held. It was a long shot, I told myself, probably just my anxiety getting the better of me. But I had to know. The drive was agonizing, each mile stretching into an eternity. The rain intensified, blurring the road ahead as if the heavens themselves were conspiring to hide the truth from me. When I finally reached the village hall, it was deserted. The windows were dark, the parking lot empty. A cold dread settled in my stomach. I pulled out my phone, intending to call Isolde, but hesitated. What would I say? Accuse her of lying? Demand an explanation? I didn't have any proof, only a gnawing suspicion. Instead, I decided to drive around, hoping to spot her car, to find some explanation, however flimsy, that would ease my troubled mind. I drove past the village pub, the King's Head, a cozy establishment known for its roaring fireplace and hearty meals. As I glanced inside, my heart stopped. There, in a dimly lit corner, sat Isolde, not with a group of book club members, but with a man whose hand was resting intimately on her leg. I pulled over, my hands shaking so violently I could barely grip the steering wheel. I stared at them through the rain-streaked window, my mind struggling to comprehend what I was seeing. It couldn't be true. Isolde wouldn't do this to me, not after all these years, not after everything we had shared, but it was true. As I watched, the man leaned in and kissed her, a lingering, passionate kiss that left no room for doubt. My world shattered. The woman I loved, the woman I had trusted implicitly, was betraying me in the most profound way imaginable. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, paralyzed by shock and disbelief. Then, a wave of anger washed over me, a burning, white-hot rage that threatened to consume me. I wanted to storm into the pub, confront them, demand answers, but something held me back. A sense of self-preservation, perhaps, or maybe just the realization that nothing I could say or do would change what I had just witnessed. Instead, I drove home, the image of Isolde kissing another man seared into my brain. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room, staring out at the rain, replaying the scene over and over in my mind, trying to make sense of it. How could she do this? Why? The next morning, Isolde returned, her face bright, her demeanor seemingly normal. She greeted me with a kiss, asked about my night, and chattered about the book club meeting as if nothing had happened. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to confront her with the truth. But I held my tongue. I knew I couldn't continue living a lie. I needed to know the truth to understand why she had betrayed me. But I also knew that confronting her directly would likely result in denial and obfuscation. I needed proof, irrefutable evidence that would force her to face the consequences of her actions. I decided to hire a private investigator, a man named Alaric, recommended by a friend who promised discretion and results. I met him in a dingy office in a nearby town, a place that smelled of stale cigarettes and broken dreams. He listened patiently as I recounted my suspicions, his expression impassive. He didn't judge, didn't offer false reassurances. He simply asked questions, took notes, and promised to get to the bottom of it. The next few weeks were agonizing. I lived in a state of constant anxiety, waiting for Alaric's report, trying to act normal around Isolde, all the while knowing that our relationship was built on a foundation of lies. I lost my appetite, couldn't sleep, and found it increasingly difficult to concentrate on my work. Isolde, oblivious to my inner turmoil, continued her charade. She went to her book club meetings, spent hours on her phone, and showered me with affection, as if trying to compensate for her guilt. I found myself recoiling from her touch, unable to reconcile the woman I loved with the woman I had seen kissing another man. Finally, Alaric called. He had the evidence I needed. He asked me to meet him at his office the following day. I spent another sleepless night, dreading what I was about to learn but also desperate for the truth. The next day, I sat in Alaric's office, my hands clammy, my heart pounding in my chest. He handed me a thick envelope filled with photographs and documents. I opened it slowly, my eyes scanning the contents. The photographs were damning. They showed Isolde and the man from the pub, whose name I learned was Cadman, attending romantic dinners, holding hands in the park, and entering a hotel together. The documents included credit card statements that showed Isolde had been paying for Cadman's expenses, and phone records that revealed they had been in constant communication for months. But the most shocking revelation was a letter, handwritten by Isolde, addressed to Cadman. In it she confessed her love for him, described her marriage to me as a loveless prison, and declared her intention to leave me for him. I felt as if I had been punched in the gut. The pain was so intense it took my breath away. I stared at the letter, my mind reeling, trying to process the enormity of her betrayal. How could she have been so deceitful, so cruel? I thanked Alaric, paid him his fee, and left his office, feeling numb and disoriented. I drove home in a daze, the evidence of Isolde's affair burning a hole in my pocket. I knew I couldn't stay silent any longer. I had to confront her, to demand an explanation, to finally put an end to this charade. When I arrived home, Isolde was waiting for me, a worried expression on her face. "Ansel, darling, is everything all right? You look terrible." I said nothing but simply handed her the envelope. She took it hesitantly, her eyes widening as she recognized Alaric's logo. She opened it slowly, her face paling as she examined the contents. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with tears. "Ansel, I can explain." "Explain what, Isolde?" I said, my voice trembling with anger and pain. "Explain how you could betray me like this. Explain how you could lie to me for so long. Explain how you could declare your love for another man in a letter." She began to cry, her body shaking with sobs. "I'm so sorry, Ansel. I never meant to hurt you. But you did hurt me, Isolde," I said, my voice rising. "You shattered my heart, destroyed my trust, and ruined our marriage. How could you?" She confessed everything. She admitted to having an affair with Cadman for the past 6 months, claiming she had fallen in love with him and that he made her feel alive again. She said she had been unhappy in our marriage for years, feeling stifled and unfulfilled. She blamed me for being too complacent, too predictable, too boring. I listened in silence, my heart breaking with each word. I had always tried to be a good husband, to provide for her, to make her happy, but apparently it wasn't enough. I had failed her somehow without even realizing it. "What do you want me to do?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I want you to leave," I said, my voice firm. "I want you to pack your things and get out of my house. I don't want to see you again." She didn't argue. She simply nodded, her tears flowing freely. She went upstairs and began packing her belongings, her movements slow and deliberate. I watched her from the living room, my heart aching with sadness and regret. Within an hour, she was gone. She left without a word, without a backward glance. The house felt empty and silent, as if a part of me had been ripped away. I spent the next few days in a daze, wandering around the house, unable to eat or sleep. I replayed our life together in my mind, searching for clues, for signs that I had missed. I blamed myself, questioned my worth, and wondered if I would ever be able to love again. I knew I couldn't stay in the cottage. It was filled with too many memories, too many reminders of what I had lost. I decided to sell it and move away, to start a new life somewhere else. I contacted a real estate agent, a woman named Bront who was efficient and compassionate. She helped me prepare the house for sale, offering advice and support. She listened patiently as I recounted my story, her eyes filled with empathy. As I worked alongside Bront, clearing out the clutter, dusting the furniture, and polishing the floors, I began to feel a sense of purpose again. I realized that I couldn't let Isolde's betrayal define me. I had to move on, to rebuild my life, to find happiness again. The cottage sold quickly, to a young couple eager to escape the city and embrace the tranquility of village life. I watched them move in, their faces filled with excitement and anticipation, and I felt a pang of sadness, but also a sense of hope. I moved to a small coastal town in Cornwall, a place I had always dreamed of living. I bought a small workshop overlooking the sea and began crafting furniture inspired by the natural beauty of my surroundings. I found solace in the rhythm of the waves, the cries of the seagulls, and the endless expanse of the horizon. I started taking long walks along the beach, exploring hidden coves and rugged cliffs. I met new people, joined a local woodworking club, and even started taking surfing lessons. I was slowly rebuilding my life, piece by piece, like a finely crafted piece of furniture. One evening, as I was walking along the beach, I saw Bront. She was standing by the water's edge, gazing out at the sunset. I hesitated for a moment, unsure whether to approach her. But then she turned around and smiled. "Ansel," she said, her voice warm and welcoming. "What are you doing here?" "I live here now," I said. "I moved here after I sold the cottage." "I know," she said. "I heard about it. I'm glad you're doing well." We talked for hours, sharing our stories, our dreams, and our fears. I learned that she had recently gone through a difficult divorce herself and that she understood the pain of betrayal. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the sea, I realized that I was falling in love with Bront. She was kind, compassionate, and intelligent, and she saw me for who I was, not for what I had lost. We started dating, and our relationship blossomed quickly. We shared a love of nature, a passion for art, and a deep appreciation for each other's company. She helped me heal from the wounds of the past, and she gave me the courage to believe in love again. 1 year later, we were married in a small ceremony on the beach, surrounded by our closest friends and family. As I looked into Bront's eyes, I knew that I had found my soulmate, the woman who would love me unconditionally for the rest of my life. Isolde's betrayal had been the most painful experience of my life, but it had also led me to something beautiful and unexpected. I had lost a wife, but I had gained a new life, a new love, and a new appreciation for the resilience of the human spirit. Sometimes, the greatest tragedies can lead to the greatest blessings. You just have to be open to the possibility, to have faith in the future, and to never give up on love.